Hello students, welcome to today's session. So today we are going to discuss new operator which is quite different from the other operators which we have discussed so far. So to understand the new operator, you must be clear with the concept of local variable and an instance variable. See, first of all, try to understand what is a local variable. I have explained the concept of local and instance variable in the earlier chapters while discussing the practical coding example for the washing machine class, but still I will repeat it again. So what is a local variable? See, so far most of the time we have been creating variables, and the variables, those variables were being created inside the function. Okay, for example, here we have got a function whose name is main, and any variable created inside this function will be called as a local variable. So let's say if I create int num1 is equal to 10. So this num1, this variable num1 is a local variable. Okay, this local variable is available only to the main function. Okay, the name of the function is main. Similarly, if I create one more function, so the name of this function is get num. Okay, or let me rename it to get number. Okay, the name of the function is get number. Now this is our second function in the program, in the new operator class. Okay, so when I create let's say another variable here, so this num2 variable is part of the get number function, and num2 is local to get number function, just like num1 variable is local to the main function. Now this num1 function cannot be accessed outside the main function. Okay, it cannot be accessed in get number. Similarly, the num2 function, the num2 variable cannot be accessed outside the get number function. So if I try to print the value of num1 in get number, okay, system.out.println, so students, I'm trying to print the value of num1 inside get number, and you can see that an error has popped up that cannot find symbol variable num1. Okay, that means num1 is not visible to get number. Okay, similarly num2 is not visible to the main function. I hope this clearly explains the concept of local variable. Okay, local means it is local, it's not available outside. Okay, outside the function. Now there is another kind of variable which is known as instance variable. So now you can see that I've created the third variable named num3. So this num3 variable is not inside any function. It is not present inside any function. Num1 and num2, they are present inside their respective functions, whereas num3 is not present within a function, but it is present within the class. Okay, num3 is present within the class. So this makes it, this makes num3 and an instance variable. So an instance variable will always be defined or declared outside of any function. Okay, outside of any function, but inside a class. So you can declare a list of instance variable. Okay, so this area, okay, can be used for declaring any number of instance variables. Okay, next point is that num3 is accessible within all the functions. Okay, num3 can be accessed inside main also, inside get number also, and be it any other function within the new operator class. So let's try to access num3 from both the functions, and let's see if we can do that. So let's say I write here num3 is equal to 34. Okay, and let's print the value here. So that is num3, and let us just copy the same code and paste it here, and let's make num3 as 67. Okay, so now focus that inside the main function I have I've defined num3 as 34, and inside the get number function I have defined num3 as 61. So now let's compile and see the output. So let us call the main function first. See, the main function is showing the value of num3 as 34. Okay, because num3 was initialized with 34. Now let us call the other function also, that is get number function, and the get number function is showing the value of num3 as 67. So the point here is that num3 is being accessed inside any function, okay, present within the new operator class. Okay, although the individual functions, they don't have a local variable named as num3. So this proves that this num3, which is an instance variable, is accessible to all the functions within the class in which the instance variable has been declared. So num3 is declared within new operator. So any function which is coming inside this new operator class can access this num3. This point is very, very important, and that is why I am repeating it again and again. Now let us create one more function inside the same class, and let's call the function as display. And in this display function I will just print the value of num3. Okay, I will not store any new number inside num3. Inside the display function I'll just print the value. Now let's compile. let's call the main function first, or let's call the get number function first. When I call get number function, the value of num3 is being printed as 67, so which is expected. So that is all right. Now I will call the main function. I'll call the main function, and this is printing the value of num3 as 34. So this is also what we were expecting. Now let us call the display function and see what value is being printed for num3. And before you see the answer for this, I want you to guess the answer, okay, what it will be. So you can pause the video and think for a moment, and then you can see the answer. So let's see. I will call the display function here, and you can see that the display function is printing the value of num3 as 34. How is this happening, and what is this proving? See, the important point here is that the latest assignment to num3 was done by main function, isn't it? Recall which function we called first. We called get number first, and 67 was printed. Then which function did I call? I called main function, right? When I called main function, num3 was assigned with the value of 34, and that's why 34 was printed on the screen. And finally, the third time I called the display function. So the latest assignment to num3 was done by the main function. That is the reason why this display function is printing the value of num3 as 34. That means what? What can we conclude from this? That we can conclude that for this object here, see this red box, the red box is representing an object of the new operator class. Okay, this red box is an object of the new operator class. Okay, so this particular object will have a single copy of num3, and that single copy is accessible to all the functions of the new operator class. Let's see what happens if I create another object. Okay, if I create another object for the new operator class. So for creating another object, I'll just right click on this box here. So this box represents the class, the new operator class. I'll right click on it and click on new operator, and I will click on OK. You can see that another object has been created. Okay, and this object is also of type new operator. Okay, so both the objects are belonging to the new operator type. Okay, now let us call display function from here, and what do you think the output of num3 will be this time? Okay, again you can pause the video and think for a moment, and then you can see the answer. So let's call display function. So the display function this time is printing as it's printing the value of num3 as 0. Okay, now focus here students. I'm calling the display function again, but I'll call it from this object, from the first object. Okay, so I'm calling the display function here again. So what's happening here? This time it's showing 34. When I call the display function from here, the value of num3 is 34. But when I call the display function from the second object, it is showing the value of num3 as 0. So this must be getting very confusing for you, isn't it? I can understand, but I'm trying my best to explain this concept, what's happening here. Okay, so let's try to understand this. Let's just write down the steps which we did. So the first case is for the first object. Okay, when first object was created. So when the first object, okay, when this object was created, in which sequence did we call the functions? So in which sequence did we call the functions? So the sequence was, we called get number first, then we called main function, and then finally we called the display function. Okay, I hope you agree with the sequence. This was the sequence. If you do not remember, you can go back and watch it. Okay, so this was the sequence. So when get number was called, num3 was assigned with the value of 67, and that is why 67 got printed on the screen. Okay, after that we called the main function, and the main function assigned the value of 34 to num3, and that is why when we call the main function, 34 was printed on the screen. Finally we called the display function, and the display function, it did not do any assignment operation. It did not assign any value to num3, but it did print the value of num3, which was 34. Okay, now what was the second step? Okay, the second step was, we created a second object of the new operator class. Okay, and from here we did not call main function, we did not call get number function, we directly called the display function. And when we called the display function, the value of num3 was being printed as 0. Just in case if you are confused, I will quickly repeat these steps again. Okay, let's remove the objects from here. Let's remove the objects and let's do it again. Okay, so I will perform this operation again. I will create one object here. Okay, I'll just give a name here. Okay, object 1. So the sequence is get number. Let's call the get number function and see the output. The output is 67. Okay, then the sequence, in the sequence we have main function. I'm calling the main function and it's printing 34 as the value of num3. Okay, now finally I'll call the display function and the display function is showing me 34. Okay, now let's do this step. Okay, let's do this step. What is it? We create a second object. Okay, so let's right click here and click on new and let's name the object as object 2 and click on OK, and then here I'll directly call the display function. Okay, so if I call the display function, the value of num3 is coming as 0. But if focus here, if I call the display function from the first object, it is still showing me 34. Okay, so I hope you are getting the point here. Okay, so now let me give you the explanation for this phenomena, let's say. Okay, so what is actually happening here, students? See, when the first object was created, okay, when the first object was created, so I'll represent the object with this square box here. Okay, so this is our first object and the name of the object we chose was obj1, object 1. Okay, so this is our first object and this is our second object. Okay, so since num3 is an instance variable, okay, each object will have its own copy of num3. Okay, each object will have its own copy of num3. That means what? When we created the first object obj1, this num3 came into existence. Okay, and this num3 does not exist when the first object was created. This num3 does not exist because this object itself does not exist. Okay, but when we created obj1, so num3 was also created. Similarly, when we created the second object obj2, its own different copy of num3 was created. Okay, and this num3 and this num3 are entirely different. They are not related. Okay, they are not same. When you make any changes to this num3, it will not affect to this num3, and when you make any change to this num3, it will not reflect in this num3. Okay, that both of them are independent and separate from each other. Okay, because each object has its own copy of the instance variable. This point you should stick to your brain, that each object has its own copy. Okay, its own copy of the instance variable, and that is the reason why, see, let's open the notepad again. So what actually happened here, when we created the first object, okay, so this was the sequence of functions that were executed. So when get number was called, which object, which num3 will get the number, this num3 or this num3? Obviously, when this was happening, only this we were talking about obj1, right? We were not talking about obj2. Okay, so the number 67 was assigned to this particular num3. Okay, then when we call the main function, this 34 was again assigned to this num3 only. 67 was replaced by num3, by 34. Earlier the value was 67, but when the main function was called, this num3 was assigned the value of 34. 67 was gone. Okay, and when we called the display function, so the latest assignment was 34. Okay, that is why display was showing us the value of num3 as 34. Okay, then what happened, then we created another object, isn't it? We created the second object obj2. We created the second object. Now when we created the second object, num3 was created. Okay, a new num3 was created, and obviously we haven't done any assignment here. We haven't stored any number here. Okay, so the default value of num3 will be 0. Okay, and that is the reason why when we called the display function here, it showed us the value of num3 as 0 and not 34. Okay, it printed the value of num3 as 0. Okay, but when I went back and right clicked on object 1 and called the display function, it showed me 34 again, isn't it? See, this display is showing me 0, but this display is showing me 34. That is because we know that this particular num3 is storing 34, and this particular num3 is storing 0. So students, this concept is very important. It's very important to understand the concept of object oriented programming. Okay, this is a very fundamental concept. If you do not understand this concept, it will be difficult for you to understand the object oriented programming concepts. Okay, so I urge you to uh, repeatedly watch this video again and again until you get the concept. Okay, and if there is one single thing, if you want to take away from this video, it will be this point, that every object will have its own copy of the instance variables. I've written variables because we can have any number of we can have any number of variables, any number of instance variables here. This example was just for keeping things simple so that it will be easy for you, but there can be any number of instance variables. Okay, that is why I've written instance variables here in plural form. Okay, so every object will have its own copy of the instance variables. Okay, when you understand this concept, then it will be very easy for you to understand why this second object is showing the value of num3 as 0, and why the first object is showing the value of num3 as 34. Okay, so this single point, if you are able to grasp, you can understand why this is happening, and I have explained it in quite detail in this video. So I'll stop here, and in the next session I will be showing you the same program, but I will not be using these red boxes for creating the object. I will be doing it through coding. Okay, I will show you how we can create the objects directly inside the code. Okay, not from this window here. Okay, not from here. So that I'll be showing you in the next video, because this video has already become quite long, and that is why I don't want to cram you up with lots of information. So okay students, I'll stop here. Thank you.